Clara Bennett stood outside the towering glass headquarters of Hale Industries, her fingers trembling around the pregnancy test hidden inside her handbag. The building shimmered under the afternoon sun, cold and untouchable, much like the man waiting inside. She had practiced the words all morning. I'm pregnant. 2 simple words. 2 lives inside her, and everything about to change. When the receptionist led her to the executive floor, Clara's heartbeat felt louder than the clicking of her heels against polished marble. She had walked these halls before, had once felt special here. Loved. Today she felt small. Lucas Hale stood behind his desk, sleeves rolled neatly, tie perfectly aligned, dark hair brushed back with effortless precision. Billionaire CEO, media darling, ruthless negotiator, the man she had loved. He didn't look up immediately. Make it quick, he said coolly. I have a board call in 10. Clara swallowed and stepped forward. Lucas, I need to tell you something important. He sighed, finally meeting her eyes. For half a second, something softened in his expression. Then she placed the test on his desk. I'm pregnant. Silence. A long, unbearable silence. Lucas stared at the small white stick as if it were a contract he hadn't agreed to sign. His jaw tightened. Slowly, he leaned back in his leather chair. Pregnant, he repeated flatly. Clara nodded. 8 weeks. Another pause. Then he gave a short, humorless laugh. How convenient. The words struck like a slap. Her breath caught. What does that mean? It means, he said smoothly, standing and circling his desk, that you picked an interesting time to tell me this. I didn't pick anything. Lucas stopped in front of her, his eyes cold now. Calculating. How much? Clara blinked. What? Name your price, he said calmly. Apartment, monthly support, a one-time settlement. I'll have my lawyers draft something clean. The world tilted. You think I came here for money? I think you understand how this works, he replied. I won't have a scandal, and I won't be trapped into fatherhood. Her chest burned. This is your child. No, he corrected. It's a problem. Clara stepped back as if physically struck. For months he had whispered promises against her skin. Talked about futures, about building something real. And now this. She's not a problem, Clara whispered fiercely, pressing a hand over her stomach. Or he. This is a life. Lucas's expression hardened further. You're young. You'll recover. Take the money. Move on. Something inside her broke, but something stronger rose in its place. I don't want your money, she said, voice shaking but steady. I wanted you. But clearly I never had you. He didn't answer. She picked up the test. I'll raise this child alone. And one day, when they ask about you, I'll tell them the truth. A flicker, barely visible, crossed his face. But he said nothing. Clara walked out of that office with her heart shattered, but her spine straight. By the time she reached the street, tears blurred the skyline. She pressed her palm to her stomach. I've got you, she whispered, no matter what. The weeks that followed were brutal. Clara moved into a smaller apartment across town. She worked double shifts at a neighborhood bakery, standing for hours while nausea rolled through her. She sold jewelry Lucas had once gifted her. She counted coins for rent. At her first ultrasound appointment, she lay back nervously as the technician smiled. Oh my, the woman murmured. Clara's heart jumped. Is something wrong? The screen turned. 2 tiny shapes flickered. Not wrong, the technician said warmly. You're having twins. The room spun. Twins? Tears slid down Clara's temples into her hair. 2 heartbeats, 2 lives, twice the fear, twice the love. That night, she sat on her bed in the dark, hands over her belly. "Okay," she whispered shakily. "We'll do this. All 3 of us." The pregnancy drained her strength and stretched her finances thin. She accepted hand-me-down baby clothes, ate simple meals, sewed blankets from fabric scraps. Loneliness was the worst part. At night, she imagined Lucas in his penthouse, unaware or uncaring, that his children kicked inside her. But every flutter beneath her ribs reminded her she was not alone. The delivery came on a stormy night. No partner held her hand, no whispered encouragement, only nurses, bright lights and pain that ripped through her body. Then, a cry, sharp and fierce, followed by another. 2 voices, 2 daughters. When they placed them in her arms, Clara sobbed. Dark hair, deep brown eyes, Lucas's eyes, yet softer. "Welcome to the world," she whispered through tears. Lily and Nora, they were perfect, and they were hers. The first years were survival. 2 cribs squeezed into her bedroom, sleepless nights, endless feedings, laundry piled like mountains. Clara worked mornings at the bakery and cleaned offices at night. A neighbor watched the girls cheaply, out of kindness. There were weeks she skipped meals to afford formula. But there was also laughter. Lily's fearless crawl across the floor. Nora's gentle habit of holding her sister's hand. Their first words. Their first steps. Their first mama. Those moments filled the cracks Lucas had left behind. By the time the twins turned 8, their small apartment overflowed with drawings taped to walls and mismatched shoes near the door. Lily was bold and curious. Nora was thoughtful and observant. Together they were Clara's entire universe, and Lucas Hale. He was a legend in business magazines, untouchable, powerful, childless, or so he believed. Until the night fate arranged a gala neither of them expected. The envelope arrived like a piece of another universe. Clara found it waiting at the bakery's back counter after a long shift, tucked between flour invoices and receipts. The paper was thick, cream-colored, expensive in a way that made her fingers hesitate before opening it. Her name was written neatly across the front. Not misspelled, not smudged, not rushed. It felt deliberate. That night, Lily and Nora sat at the kitchen table, their homework spread out in a messy constellation of pencils, erasers, and colorful markers. Clara opened the envelope carefully, as if it might bite. Inside was an invitation printed in elegant black script. A charity gala at the Astorwood Hotel. Clara's stomach tightened at the name alone. The Astorwood wasn't just expensive. It was legendary. The kind of place she'd once served tables in, wearing a uniform that made her disappear into the background. The kind of place where people wore diamonds like they were nothing. She read on. A foundation, partnered with local schools, had hosted an art competition. 2 student pieces had been selected for display at the gala. The winners and their parents were invited to attend the event and be recognized publicly. Clara's eyes dropped to the names. Lily Bennett. Nora Bennett. She blinked, then reread the line. Her hands started to shake. "Mom?" Lily looked up, noticing. "Is it bad?" "No," Clara said quickly, forcing a smile that felt too stiff. "No, sweetheart. It's good." Nora leaned forward, her quiet eyes studying Clara's face like she could read the truth in it. "Then why do you look scared?" Clara swallowed, because she knew exactly who belonged in rooms like that. And she knew the man who had built his life in them. She cleared her throat and read the letter aloud, keeping her voice light. As soon as she reached the part about their drawings being displayed, both girls erupted. "We're going to a fancy party?" Lily squealed, already half out of her chair. Nora covered her mouth with both hands, eyes shining. Like, with chandeliers? Clara laughed despite herself, because their joy was contagious. Yes, with chandeliers. Lily bounced. Do they have tiny sandwiches? The ones on the toothpicks? Nora added softly. And music? Clara nodded, but the knot in her chest grew tighter, because the letter also included the Foundation's list of sponsors. And the first name stamped in bold at the top was one she never forgot. Hale Foundation. The week leading up to the gala felt like walking toward a storm. Clara tried to tell herself she was being ridiculous. The city was huge. People like Lucas Hale attended dozens of events. He might not even be there, but dread didn't listen to logic. Clara borrowed a navy dress from a friend. Simple, elegant, not new. She stayed up past midnight, altering the waist so it fit properly, stitching quietly while the twins slept. For the girls, she found 2 matching lavender dresses in a second-hand shop. She washed and pressed them until they looked almost brand new. When Lily and Nora tried them on, they twirled in front of the mirror like tiny dancers. Lily grinned. I look like a princess. Nora touched the skirt carefully. We match. You always match, Clara teased. No, Nora said solemnly. This is different. This is special. Clara's heart squeezed. It was special. And that was exactly why she couldn't let her fear steal it from them. The asterwood glittered like a jewel. Box, limousines lined the curb. Men in tuxedos offered hands to women wrapped in sequins. Cameras flashed at the entrance, catching smiles that looked practiced. Clara held tight to Lily and Nora's hands as they stepped through the revolving doors. Inside, the lobby was all marble, gold trim, and enormous floral arrangements that smelled like money. Lily tilted her head back, staring at the chandelier like she might fall into it. Nora whispered, It's like the ceiling has stars. Clara forced herself to breathe and walked forward. This wasn't her world, but her daughters had earned their place in it tonight. A coordinator greeted them and led them into the ballroom. Clara's breath caught. Golden light spilled from chandeliers so large they looked like frozen waterfalls. Waiters floated between tables, carrying trays of champagne. A string quartet played softly, the notes brushing the air like velvet. On one side of the room, children's artwork stood on easels, framed and carefully lit. The twins' drawings were right there. Lily's was bold, filled with bright animals and a huge sun. Nora's was softer, 2 hands holding a smaller pair of hands surrounded by stars. Guests paused to admire them. Clara's throat tightened with pride. You did this, she whispered, kneeling to their level. You should be so proud. Lily smiled like she might burst. Nora leaned into Clara's shoulder, quiet but glowing. Then Clara felt it, that sudden pressure in the air, like a shift in gravity. She turned slowly, and the ballroom blurred around the edges as her eyes locked onto a man standing across the room. Lucas Hale. He was exactly as she remembered, and somehow worse. Taller, sharper, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that made him look carved out of shadow. He stood among investors like he belonged at the center of everything, because he did. His gaze swept the room lazily until it hit her, and stopped. His face still went. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then his eyes dropped, drifting past her shoulder. To Lily, to Nora. Clara's blood turned to ice. Lucas took 1 slow step forward, then another, as if pulled by something stronger than pride. His expression shifted, disbelief cracking through his control. Lily turned to whisper something to Nora, and the chandelier light caught her face fully. Those eyes. Lucas's breath visibly hitched. Nora turned too, curious at her sister's sudden quiet, and Lucas looked like the ground vanished beneath him. He didn't sprint. He didn't shout. He simply walked, straight toward them, like a man moving through a dream. Clara stepped instinctively in front of her daughters, shoulders squared, protective as a shield. Lucas stopped a few feet away. His voice came out rougher than she'd ever heard it. "Clara." She didn't answer. His eyes flicked to the girls again, as if he couldn't stop himself. His jaw clenched. "They're yours." Clara's lips pressed into a thin line. "They're mine," she said quietly. "And they're 8. Lucas swallowed hard, throat working as if the words scraped on the way down. "Are they?" Clara held his stare. Let him feel it. Let him understand what 8 years looked like. "Yes," she said, voice steady. "They're yours. The daughters you tried to turn into a transaction." The words landed like a punch. Lucas's face tightened, and for the first time in his life, perhaps the first time ever, he looked truly afraid. Lily tugged softly at Clara's hand. "Mom." "Who was that?" Clara didn't take her eyes off Lucas. "No one you need to worry about." Lucas flinched at the dismissal. Nora peeked around Clara's hip, studying him with quiet curiosity. "He looks sad," she whispered, not unkindly. Clara's chest burned. Lucas stared at them. 2 little girls, laughing and breathing and alive, proof of everything he'd chosen to deny. The room around them carried on. Glasses clinked. Music played. People smiled. But for Clara and Lucas, the ballroom had narrowed into a single moment, a reckoning. And Clara knew, with chilling certainty, this was not the end. It was the beginning. Lucas Hale left the Astorwood that night with his chest tight and his thoughts spilling like broken glass. The city lights blurred past the car window, but he didn't see them. All he saw were 2 small faces framed by lavender dresses. 2 pairs of eyes that looked back at him with curiosity, not recognition. Because they didn't know him. Because he had chosen not to know them. He had told himself 8 years ago that Clara's pregnancy was a trap, a problem, something money could erase. Now the truth sat in his bones like a sickness. It hadn't been erased. It had grown. 2 daughters, 8 birthdays he missed, 8 years of first words, first scraped knees, first drawings, first nightmares, first days of school. His stomach twisted. For the first time in his life, success felt like ash. The next morning, his office felt like a museum of his own, emptiness. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the city he owned in every way except the one that mattered. He sat through meetings like a ghost, signing documents without reading them, nodding as people pitched investments that would normally thrill him. Nothing did. His mind returned over and over to Clara's face at the gala. Older, tired in a way that didn't come from sleepless nights alone, but from carrying an entire life without help. Yet she had looked unbreakable, standing in front of the girls like a shield, forged from years of sacrifice. And when she'd said, "They're 8," it had landed like a verdict. He hadn't just abandoned Clara. He had abandoned them. On the 3rd night without sleep, Lucas poured himself a drink, set it down untouched, and finally admitted the truth aloud into the silent penthouse. "I was wrong." The words didn't soften anything. They only sharpened the pain. But they were the first honest words he'd spoken about in 8 years. Lucas didn't ask permission from his pride to move. He used what he'd always used, resources, influence, connections, to find answers. Within 48 hours, his head of security handed him a file with Clara's address, workplace, and the twins' school schedule. Lucas stared at the printed pages. He could acquire anything. But he couldn't buy time. Still, he could do one thing: stop wasting more of it. That afternoon, he drove to the worn brick building where Clara lived. He parked across the street and sat in the car, hands clenched on the steering wheel. The neighborhood looked nothing like his world. No polished stone or doorman, just kids riding bikes, old women watering plants in window boxes, laundry hanging from balconies. He saw Clara come into view, walking with the twins. Lily skipped ahead, talking rapidly, hands moving like she was painting the air. Nora stayed closer to Clara's side, listening, occasionally murmuring something that made Clara smile softly. Lucas's throat closed. They were happy, not rich, not sheltered, but loved. And he had not been part of that love. He watched them climb the steps and disappear inside. His car suddenly felt too small to contain everything crushing his lungs. 2 days later, he went up those steps himself. He didn't send lawyers, didn't bring gifts, didn't bring checks. Just himself. The hallway smelled faintly of old paint and someone's dinner. Lucas stood in front of Clara's door, staring at it like it was the entrance to a life he didn't deserve. He lifted his hand and knocked. Footsteps. A pause. The door opened. Clara stood there, her expression instantly turning to stone. No shock, no fear, only controlled fury. "What do you want?" she asked. Lucas's voice came out quieter than he expected. "I need to talk." Clara's eyes narrowed. "You already talked 8 years ago." He swallowed. "I know." Behind her, giggles floated through the apartment. A child's laughter, bright and careless. Lucas's chest ached. "I saw them," he said carefully. "Lily and Nora. Clara? I didn't know. I didn't—" Clara's laugh was sharp, bitter. "You didn't ask. You didn't care." He flinched at the truth because he couldn't deny it. Then Lily's face appeared, peeking around Clara's hip. Curious, open, unafraid. Nora followed, quieter, her eyes studying him with unsettling intensity for someone so young. Lucas dropped to one knee without thinking, not as a gesture, but because the sight of them standing there made his legs feel weak. "Hi," he said softly, like he might scare them if he spoke too loudly. Lily tilted her head. "Are you famous?" Lucas blinked, startled. People say that." Nora whispered, not unkindly. "You look like you're going to cry." Clara's jaw tightened. "Girls, inside." "But," Lily started. "Inside," Clara repeated, firm. They hesitated, then retreated, leaving Lucas and Clara facing each other in the narrow hallway. Clara stepped out, pulling the door partly closed behind her. It felt like she was keeping him outside on purpose, making sure he understood he had no claim here. "What?" she said. "Do you want from us?" Lucas's throat worked. "A chance." Clara's eyes flashed. "A chance? Lucas, they cried when they were sick and asked for a father. They came home from school events and asked why other kids had dads waiting at pickup. They asked why mine never showed up." Her voice shook, not with weakness, but with controlled, exhausted rage. And I had to smile. I had to give them answers that didn't poison their hearts. I had to be enough for all 3 of us. Lucas stared at the floor, pain tightening his face. "I know I failed." Clara scoffed. "Failure is forgetting to call, missing a birthday, not knowing their favorite color." She pointed toward the door as if the apartment itself was a witness. "You chose to reject their existence." Lucas looked up, eyes glassy. "I was cruel. I was arrogant. I thought love made me weak. And I was terrified of anything I couldn't control." Clara's expression didn't soften. I don't want forgiveness, he continued, voice raw. Not from you, not from them. But I can't walk away again. Not now that I've seen them. Let me prove it. Without money, without press, without manipulation, just time. Clara held his gaze like she was deciding whether he was dangerous. Then she said quietly, consistency. That's what they deserve. Lucas nodded immediately. I can do that. If you mean it, Clara warned, you show up. Not once. Not when it's convenient. Not when it makes you feel better. Her eyes hardened. If you hurt them again, Lucas, I will never let you near them. He didn't argue. He didn't bargain. He only said, you won't regret giving me this chance. Clara's lips pressed together. Then she opened the door slightly. Not fully. Not welcoming. Just allowing. Tomorrow, she said. School pickup, 3 o'clock. If you're late, don't come. Lucas nodded. I'll be there early. Clara studied him one last time, then closed the door. Lucas stood alone in the dim hallway, breathing hard like he'd just survived a battle. In a way, he had. He'd faced something scarier than any competitor. The consequences of who he'd been. And for the first time, he knew exactly what he wanted to build next. Not an empire, a family. Lucas arrived at the school at 2:15. Pickup was at 3. He stood across the street in a coat that cost more than most people's rent and watched parents gather in small clusters, chatting as if time had never hurt them. He felt out of place in a way he hadn't felt since he was a teenager, with 2 big shoes and not enough money. Now he had everything, except the one thing that mattered. At 2:40, Clara appeared at the gate, scanning the sidewalk like a soldier assessing threats. When she spotted him, her face didn't change. No approval, no warmth, only watchfulness. Lucas walked toward her slowly. I'm early, he said. That's the point, Clara replied. He nodded, accepting it without protest. They waited in silence until the bell rang. Children poured out like a flood of bright noise. Lily was the first to spot Clara. She ran, hair flying. Then she saw Lucas. She slowed, eyes narrowing with curiosity. Nora came behind her, walking instead of running, holding her backpack strap with both hands. Her gaze landed on Lucas and stayed there, quiet and assessing. Lily pointed at him. You're the man from the fancy party. Lucas crouched slightly so he wasn't towering over them. Yeah, that's me. Nora's voice was soft. Did you come again? Yes, Lucas answered. I wanted to see you. Lily's eyebrows lifted. Why? The question wasn't rude. It was honest, like a child asking why the sky was blue. Lucas's throat tightened. Because I'm your father felt too heavy, too sudden, too selfish. Like claiming something he hadn't earned. So he chose a truth he could stand on. Because you're important, he said simply, and I should have been here a long time ago. Lily blinked, then shrugged. Okay. Nora didn't shrug. Nora watched him like she could hear the parts he wasn't saying. Clara stepped forward. We're going home. Lily grabbed Clara's hand. Nora did too, then hesitated and looked at Lucas. Are you walking with us? She asked. Lucas's chest squeezed. If that's okay. Clara didn't answer with kindness, but she didn't forbid it either. So he walked. Lucas showed up the next day, and the day after that. Rain, wind, busy mornings. He came. He learned quickly that consistency wasn't a grand gesture. It was small, boring, and relentless. It was buying the right snacks. Lily liked crunchy apple slices. Nora preferred soft crackers. It was remembering that Nora hated loud voices, that Lily hated losing games, but secretly loved being challenged. It was showing up to a school assembly and sitting in the back, hands clenched, heart shaking, when Lily and Nora stood on stage beside their drawings. Clara didn't smile at him afterward, but she didn't flinch away either. The twins started to relax around him in tiny increments. Lily talked the most. She asked Lucas 1,000 questions, many of them blunt. Do you have a mansion? Yes. Do you have a pet tiger? No. Do you know the president? Lucas paused. Not personally. Lily seemed disappointed. Then you're not that cool. Lucas actually laughed, quiet, surprised. Fair. Nora asked fewer questions, but the ones she asked were sharp as needles. Are you going to disappear? Lucas froze. Clara's gaze snapped to Nora, then to Lucas, like the question was a test she hadn't warned him about. Lucas crouched in front of Nora, speaking carefully, honestly. No, he said. I'm not going to disappear. Nora's eyes searched his life like she was looking for lies hidden behind them. You promise? Lucas swallowed. I don't want to make promises I can't keep. But I can tell you this. If I say I'm coming, I'll come. Every time. Nora nodded once, solemn. That night, Clara didn't yell at Lucas for his answer. But she didn't thank him either. She simply watched, as if collecting proof. Some evenings, Lucas sat at Clara's small kitchen table helping with homework. At first, he fumbled. He wasn't used to fractions or spelling lists. Lily giggled openly when he got a word wrong. Nora corrected him politely, like a tiny teacher. Clara would pretend to focus on dishes, but Lucas caught her watching sometimes. Not with love. Not yet. With disbelief. As if she couldn't understand how the same man who had once sneered at her could now sit on a wobbly chair, patiently listening to Lily rant about a classmate who stole her pencil. Lucas didn't bring gifts. He asked Clara once if she needed money. Clara's eyes flashed. Don't. He nodded. Okay. Instead, he did things that didn't shine. He fixed the loose cabinet hinge. He carried groceries upstairs when Clara's arms were full. He stayed in the hallway while Clara helped the girls wash up. And when Nora asked him shyly if he could read the bedtime story, like a dad, his voice nearly broke. He read anyway, slowly, carefully, like the words mattered, because they did. The real turning point came on an ordinary Saturday at the park. Clara sat on a bench watching Lily on the swings, while Nora collected tiny leaves like they were treasure. Lucas stood nearby, hands in his pockets, trying not to crowd them. Lily shouted, "Push higher!" Lucas stepped behind the swing and gave a gentle push. Lily squealed with joy. "Higher!" He pushed again, a little more. Then Lily's foot slipped. She flew forward, landing hard, scraping her knee on the rough ground. Her scream split the air. Clara jumped up instantly, panic rising. But Lucas was faster. He dropped to his knees beside Lily, voice shaking. Hey, look at me!" Lily's tears poured down her cheeks. "It hurts." "I know," he whispered. He glanced up at Clara, fear in his eyes like he was begging her not to take this moment away. "I've got her!" Clara froze, just for a heartbeat, then nodded once. Lucas lifted Lily carefully, cradling her like she was made of glass. His hands trembled as he carried her to the bench. He cleaned the scrape with a little first aid kit Clara always kept in her bag. "I'm sorry," he murmured, eyes wet. "I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault," Lily sniffled, clinging to his neck. Lucas shut his eyes briefly, holding her tighter like he was afraid she'd vanish. Nora stepped close, placing a small leaf in Lily's lap, like an offering. Then she looked at Lucas. "You were scared," Nora said. Lucas swallowed. Yeah. Nora nodded slowly. That means you care. Clara's throat tightened so hard she couldn't speak, because she saw it, plain and undeniable. Lucas wasn't playing a role, he was feeling it. Months passed. The twins began to run to Lucas instead of only to Clara. Lily started calling him Luke, casually. Then one day, without thinking, she said, "Dad," and froze like she'd dropped something fragile. Lucas froze too. Clara held her breath. Lily's face reddened. I didn't mean... Lucas crouched gently. You don't have to call me anything you don't want to. Lily stared at him, then whispered, But... can I? Lucas blinked fast, tears finally escaping. Yes, he managed, if you want. Nora didn't speak. She just climbed into his lap and rested her head on his shoulder like she'd decided something deep inside her. Clara turned away before they could see her crying. Not because she was weak, because she was exhausted from being strong for so long. The final shift came quietly, like healing often does. One evening, Lucas walked Clara to her door after the twins fell asleep. The hallway light flickered. The building was silent. Clara stood with her keys in a hand, hesitating. Lucas cleared his throat. I know you don't owe me anything. Clara's voice came out soft. You're right, I don't. He nodded, accepting it. But then Clara said, They're happy. Lucas's eyes lifted. They are. And you didn't leave, she added, like she hated that the sentence mattered. Lucas's voice was gentle. I'm not going to. Clara looked at him for a long time. Then she said the hardest truth she'd carried alone for 8 years. I was terrified to let you matter again. Lucas's jaw tightened, pain flashing. I know, Clara exhaled shakily. But you do. Lucas didn't reach for her, didn't push. He only said, Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth that. Clara stared at him, and slowly, so slowly it felt like sunrise, she stepped forward and rested her forehead against his chest. Not forgiveness in full, not yet, but trust. A beginning. In the apartment behind them, 2 little girls slept peacefully, safe in a life that finally held all the people they deserved. Lucas closed his eyes. For years he'd built an empire made of glass and steel. But this fragile, honest, imperfect family was what he built instead. And this time, he would protect it with everything he had.